You know what happens to that letter? Nothing. The police do nothing with it. They didn't even file it correctly. They just put it in a box and stored the box away in the filing system. Yo, what is up, my friends? Welcome back to What the French Toast, your favorite podcast on the internet that leaves you asking yourself the question, what the French toast did I just listen to? I'm Skyler.
And I'm Megan.
And this is our podcast, guys. Listen, have you heard that Annabelle has escaped?
The doll?
Yes. Did you not hear about this?
No, I had no clue.
They took her on a tour. They just, for some reason, they just decided that it was a good idea to take her on a tour. Okay? She was in San Antonio, Texas, and just disappeared.
That's far too close.
Nobody knows where she is. And apparently, there have been weird things happening. Like, allegedly, there have been people, I don't know if this is in the past or if it's present or if it's both, but people getting in wrecks because they've seen her in the rearview mirror of their car because they looked at her for too long. And
I'm
just
quite literally never driving again.
All these different things. And I'm like, homie, not in Texas. I'm moving.
That's far too close for me. Far too close.
It's a good time to go to New York. Yeah, I'm losing it a little bit. Like, come on. I don't know if it's real or not, but like, if it is, I don't want to be here anymore. And I mean, look, I mean Texas, not Earth, Annabelle. Not Earth. I meant Texas. Man, I claim no negative energy.
That creeps me out. I don't know. I mean, maybe someone just stole her.
I really hope, man. I don't. And like, if you listen to me, if you are the person that stole her and you're watching this podcast, return her for your own safety.
You made her mad. Yeah, you made her mad.
You done pissed off Annabelle, and that's not okay. Have you seen the movies? It's not good. It never ends well.
That's true.
Can't handle it. Anyways, speaking of creepy things, I've got a creepy story for you today.
Yay!
All right. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Okay, so picture this, Megan, and audience is 1980.
Okay.
And Susan Miller, she's a mom of 5. She is a soon-to-be single mom of 5 because she is about to get a divorce. She's over her life. She's over everything. So she does. She gets a divorce, and her 5 children, they move, and she's ready to start over. Her 5 kids are Johnny, who's 15 years old, Sheila, who's 14 years old, Tina, who's 12, Ricky, who's 10, and then her youngest, who's Greg, he's 5 years old. They all moved to this quiet little town called Keddie. It's in the woods of Northern California, right? The locals of Keddie would say that it's all pine trees, starry nights, and it's that vibe where you feel like nothing bad could ever happen. So this quiet, quaint little town in Northern California where there's just a bunch of cabins. So Susan, they find this cool little cabin named cabin number 28. And so they're like, you know what? This seems like a good place to raise, then like continue to live with my family. And so they purchased this cabin, which used to belong to the town sheriff. It's got a lot of space. It's a cozy little cabin. Again, seemingly,
it's got to be a big cabin because 5 kids. Right. No, thanks.
Right.
Not in a cabin.
But, again, seemingly, Susan would say, the mother, right? She would say it's a perfect place to raise my kids and just kind of leave the past behind. So that's what she would do. And unfortunately, that piece that she was searching for, because I'm reporting on this story, as you can imagine, probably didn't happen.
Or else we wouldn't be talking about it.
So we're going to fast forward to April 11th, 1981. So it's about a year later after they moved to this cabin. It's a regular Saturday night, cabin number 28, the cabin that Susan had got. They've been there for a little while now, right? So the family's kind of had a chance to make friends, settle in. Johnny, who was the oldest son, he got his buddy Dana, who was 17 years old. Dana comes over to hang out with Johnny. The younger boys, Ricky and Greg, they're hanging out with the neighbor's kid, Justin, who's across the street, right? He's 12. So everybody's got their friends. It's a regular Saturday night. They're excited to be out of school. Sheila, the oldest daughter, actually ends up leaving the house for the night because she knew, her brothers were going to go invite their friends over, and it was probably going to be this whole thing. So she goes and crashes with a friend. Tina, the youngest daughter, is also across the street at another cabin, but ends up coming home around 10 p.m. that night.
Okay.
Susan, the mother, she's kind of holding the cabin down, keeping an eye on all the youngsters, making sure everything is good, so on and so forth. Again, a good regular night. Susan, she's kind of looking at the family play. And there's like a sense of like being proud of yourself. You know what I mean? Like, hey, a year ago I was in a really tough marriage, and now everything seemingly is going much better for me and my family. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a moment of realization. Across the street was cabin number 26. The neighbors there were Marilyn and her husband, Marty. Marty is a chef by profession right now, but he actually has a military past. So Marty and Marilyn, they're kind of planning a night out, which was really cool because Marty's one of his best friends from back when he was in the Army, Bo. He was in town. He came by to say hi.
There's so many people to keep track of.
There's
Holy cow.
Ton, I know.
I need a flow chart.
No, for real. So Bo's in town, right? The neighbors, Marilyn and Marty, and Bo, Marty's buddy, they're in town. He's in town. They're trying to kind of plan a night out, you know? And at some point, they walk across the street and they invite Susan, the mother of these 5 children, say, hey, we're going to go have a night out. You look like your house is full, you know? Justin, the neighbor's kid, right? So when the 12-year-old that the 2 young boys are playing with, that's Marty and Marilyn's child.
Okay.
So he's like, you know, hey, listen, I'm cool if we leave all the kids here. But we'll just go out, get some dinner. You know, back in 1981 in this quiet little town, that was okay. People did it all the time.
Yeah. And you trust your neighbors. People had neighbor relationships with their neighbors back then too. Right. So, yeah.
And so Susan goes, nah, you know, I'm good. Like, I got to stay with the kids. I'm not going to leave. So they're like, okay, if you insist. So Marty, Marilyn, and Bo, the neighbors, they go and they enjoy their night out. The next morning, Sheila, the daughter that was crashing at a friend's house, she comes home. And when she walks into the cabin, that would be one of the most gruesome sights that this girl would ever see in her entire life.
Wait, is this a true crime case?
Yes.
You hardly ever do true crime.
I know. Tides are changing, Megan.
Yeah.
You hardly ever do ghost stories, and yet Kai Spelker, that man is just running in Kansas City right now, damn it. Anyway, Sheila, the oldest daughter, she walks into the cabin expecting her brothers to be running around like usual, the normal chaos, but instead, as soon as she walks in the cabin, she's hit with a very heavy smell of like this metallic smell. She walks into the living room and she finds her brother Johnny and his friend Dana, the 17-year-old, on the floor, tied up with cords, tape, and blood is everywhere. There is what seems to be a body laying on the floor next to them, but it's covered up with a blanket and she doesn't know what it is. So she walks in, she sees this, and she just loses it. She just screams. She bolts out of the house. She runs up to the neighbors. She's flustered, panicking, asking for help. The neighbors are like, what in the world? So then the neighbors rush over. They find the bodies. They're like, we need to make sure everybody else is okay. So Ricky and Greg and Justin, the 3 younger boys.
The younger boys, yeah.
They're fine. They're fine, but seemingly their bedroom door is locked. So the neighbors have to pull these 3 boys out of the window. But thank God, like, the boys are okay.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets a little wild, right? Because Tina, the second daughter, she came home at around 10 p.m. that night. She's gone. Nowhere to be seen. Nope. Nobody knows where she is, right? And the boys say that they slept through everything. They heard no screams. They heard no struggle. They heard nothing happen. So we've got 2 murdered bodies in the living room, 1 under a blanket. We don't know who that body belongs to. And we have a missing 12-year-old girl, right? Everybody's like, what is happening? The Plumas County Sheriff's Office, they roll up. Now this is an investigation. But this investigation becomes an immediate disaster from the get-go. So they find Susan, the mother. That's who was under the blanket. She also was deceased.
Figured that, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, Susan was partially undressed and she was gagged with her own clothes. She and Johnny, the son, they were beaten with a hammer and stabbed repeatedly multiple times. And then Dana, the friend, was also beaten with a hammer, different hammer, and was strangled. They find 2 knives on the floor, 1 beside the bodies. One of them was bent from the force of the attack. And then they find hammers just laying there. Again, blood is everywhere. But now, again, we have a missing 12-year-old daughter, Tina. They find blood trailing to Tina's room. So then they walk in, and on her bed, there's blood drops all over her bed. But no Tina. Not in the house, not in the closet, not under the bed, nothing. So immediately, the cops are like, we need to find Tina. So they gather a bunch of volunteers. The cops and the volunteers immediately start searching for Tina. Obviously, everybody's hoping that she's okay, but they're preparing for the worst. And, you know, if somebody did take Tina, whoever took her, we can imagine that the reasons for taking a 12-year-old girl are probably not good. We don't have to get into those, but everybody is pretty frantic to find this missing 12-year-old girl.
Sure.
So while there are people out there, they're searching for Tina. The police go and they start questioning the neighbors. A set of neighbors said that they heard screams around 1:30 in the morning, loud enough to wake them up. So they woke up, they went, they checked outside, didn't hear anything else, didn't see anything. So they just went in, went back to bed. Fair enough. In my opinion, if there are kids playing all night and you hear screams, you're not going to assume that somebody's being brutally murdered across the street from you.
And they've got a lot of kids in the neighborhood, it sounds like. So it's like, if it's like a sleepover night, you know, the kids are all doing kid stuff. You don't necessarily jump to the worst immediately.
100%. And so that's what they did. They're like, okay, we're going to go back to bed. Seems to be nothing. So they do. They go back to sleep. Now, that being said, that makes no sense to me because these neighbors, they don't live in the same house. They're across the street somewhere. And they're saying that at 1:30 they heard screams. And you're telling me that these boys that are quite literally in the next room, they're saying they heard nothing? They're saying they heard no struggle. They heard no screams. That they just allegedly slept through everything. So that's weird to me. That sticks out to me.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Right. But the police hearing this, they're like, okay, well, we need to have a suspect, right? Like we need to have somebody to look into, to question, to really like direct our focus towards when it comes to this homicide. Yeah. So the neighbors immediately turned their suspicions toward Marty, the neighbor that lived across the street. Marty had been known for having a temper, and he had been known to be pretty abusive to his wife at times, allegedly. And his story also is a little shaky, right? So these are the people that went to the bar, that invited Susan to go to the bar. So the story is that they all three went to the bar. Marilyn, the wife, was like, hey, this place is kind of overcrowded. I don't want to be here anymore. So they're like, okay, no worries. Like, we can leave. So they get up, they leave, they drop her off at home. And then he states that him and Bo, his military friend that was in town, they got back up and they went back to town and they went back out to the bar. Which, again, to me, kind of makes sense. If there are the three of you, you're having a night out, it's a Saturday night, your wife doesn't want to be there, I would have probably done the same thing. I probably would have taken her home. Your old
buddy, you probably haven't seen him in a while.
Right. So to me, that kind of makes sense. To police, that made zero sense, and that made them even more suspicious of Marty. So they were like, okay, you know what? We need to bring this man in for a polygraph test. So they bring him in for a polygraph test. Marty passes the polygraph test. And so the police are like, you're good to go, man. Go home. You know, in case we need you, stay in town. Marty says, I got you. No big deal. And so Marty goes home. And when Marty gets home, his wife and Bo would say that he walked in, didn't say anything to anyone, walked in the bedroom, grabbed a suitcase, packed all of his stuff up in his suitcase, and then just left without a word to anyone.
And that's Bo.
This is Marty. This is Marty, the one that they just took the polygraph test for and said he passed, let him go.
Yes.
He left town. He came straight home from the polygraph test and just bolted town.
That's kind of a red flag.
Right. So then Bo, the friend, goes, well, if he's leaving, I'm not staying. So then Bo bolts out of town as well. Everybody is like, okay. So allegedly our lead suspect just left town. So you know what the police do about this? Nothing. They do not a single thing. They don't try and chase him. They don't try and ask his wife where he is. They do nothing to follow up on why this man that is their first suspect in this murder, who has a history of being violent and beating his wife, just bolted town, and they do nothing. Okay, sounds good. That's a problem. But that's not even where it ends. It gets worse because Justin, the kid of Marty and Marilyn, his story starts changing. Because first he was like, nah, man, I slept through it all. And then he's like, well, actually, no, because I had this weird dream where like in the middle of the night in my dream, I woke up, I walked into the living room. I saw two guys tying up Susan, Johnny, and Dana, and then they killed them. And then Tina walked in and they grabbed Tina and just drug her out of the house, out of the back door. And so the police are like, okay, that's a lead 100%. Maybe this dream wasn't a dream because those three people are dead and Tina is missing. So the police are like, we need to get you to a sketch artist right now to have them draw up a sketch of what these two men looked like, right? Problem is the sketch artist that they send Justin to isn't even a professional sketch artist. It's just a sheriff's friend that does art sometimes. These sketches lead to nothing, so dead end there. And then, A little while later, because this is a cold case, because there's no leads anywhere, and the only lead has had a poor sketch and left town.
Mm-hmm.
And so then a couple of years go by, and then there's this letter. Marty, the neighbor that bolted town, sends his wife, Marilyn, this really creepy note saying, quote, "I paid the price for your love, and now I've bought it with 4 lives," end quote. Could this mean 4 lives of, I don't know, the 4 people, the 3 people that are dead, Susan, Johnny, and Dana, and then the 4th person, Tina, that is still nowhere to be found? Could that be it? I don't know. But you know what? You know what happens to that letter? Nothing. The police do nothing with it. They didn't even file it correctly. They just put it in a box and stored the box away in the filing system. That's what they did. The police botched this investigation so hard. But then, if that's not frustrating enough, years more go by, and here it is now. It's 1984. Remember, they were murdered in 1981, so 3 years later, some random guy collecting bottles finds a skull 30 miles from the town of Keddie, which is where the family lived.
Mm-hmm.
So then an anonymous caller, never identified by the way, says, "No, that's Tina's skull." Now, how would you know that? She's been missing for 3 years. And you're just going to call in and say, "Hey, I found this skull." Yeah, it's definitely that missing girl, Tina's, for sure. So the police don't try and get any information from the anonymous caller. But they do go collect a skull, and DNA does prove that it is Tina's skull. But this phone call, barely documented. Just a note found years later in an evidence box.
Sounds like this police department needs to do some evaluations on their investigation processes.
I agree. Or they were covering up for somebody.
Subtle foreshadowing.
I don't know. Genuinely, this is a cold case. But, so, spoiler alert. But, I don't know. There are some theories that I will get into here in a bit. But, they botched this investigation so hard. It's really sad. But anyway, we're going to fast forward. So now it's 1984, right? 3 years. Cold case. So now we're going to fast forward to 2000. Still unsolved. Nobody has any idea. Marty, the guy who bolted town that sent his wife the letter, he dies in 2000.
Okay.
His therapist that he'd been seeing for some time, after his death, drops a bombshell.
Okay.
His therapist said that Marty confessed to him to killing Susan and Tina.
That's it, though.
That's it. Not Johnny, not Dana. However, Bo has also been missing.
That's true. He ran off too.
Justin says he saw 2 men. Now, mind you, Justin is the son of Marty. So if he saw his dad killing somebody, that's why his story keeps changing.
That, or maybe he never saw specifically his dad. But you're right. He would have known his dad. He probably might have known his dad's friends, so he probably would have recognized them.
Right. And that would make sense as to why the boys were untouched. Because he didn't want his son
that younger
to die. Or any of his he didn't want his son to be put in harm's way at all. So they just didn't touch the boys' room whatsoever. That's just a theory. But that doesn't
really, explain motive as far as why did they take Tina.
It doesn't explain motive as to why they took Tina. It doesn't explain motive as to why they killed them in the first place. Certainly, it's not because they refused to go to the bar.
Because if the motive is Tina, right, to take Tina, like she was the whole, point of it, then, okay, kill the other kids and the older kids and the mom to get her, sure. But if the motive was just to kill people, why not just kill Tina also at that time? Right.
Yeah, I agree with you. Man, I got this chair just sunk. Do you see that?
Yeah, you just slowly lowered.
Yeah. I did it on purpose, but now I feel like a child. Anyway, okay. So in 2000, Marty's therapist drops a bombshell saying, "Hey, he did confess to me to killing Susan and Tina." Too late though, right? Because he's already dead.
Well, and I thought that if they had evidence of someone harming themselves or others, therapists were required to report it.
Yeah, I was gonna get to that because that's a red flag to me. No, you're fine. Is that not part of your job? I
thought that was, as far as, I guess if they've harmed someone else or others, then or themselves or others, that's maybe different. But it seems to me like, an attorney can't tattle on you if you know what I mean? Not tattle. That diminishes it diminishes it. But, an attorney can't break that client privilege there, but like, couldn't a therapist? Well, in the case of like harm, I thought.
Right. Well, and I get client-patient confidentiality, but I feel like you're legally obligated. And actually, hold on. Give me a second. Because I feel like if you're a therapist and somebody says to you like, hey, I killed, somebody, you're probably legally obligated.
I would imagine so. Maybe not when he was the patient there, but if he was a patient all the way up until 2000, who knows? I don't know the law, but I thought that was the case. If it's not the case, that's kind of alarming.
Generally, if a client confesses to murder, their therapist is not obligated to report it to law enforcement. Therapists are bound by confidentiality, which means they cannot disclose these contents of therapy sessions unless specific exceptions apply. Would murder not be a specific exception? Yeah, we need to look into that. That seems sus.
Yeah, that doesn't sound right. I don't know. Seems to me like it would be, but maybe that's just something we've learned from TV and things like that isn't actually true.
That seems like I just wasted a Google search, because now Google's going to be like, not my search being, as a therapist, if I confess murder to my therapist, are you obligated to tell someone?
2 weeks ago, I'm searching, like, is it illegal to take your own life? You know what I mean? Like,
man, yeah, our chats, our FBI agents are on high alert. Crazy stuff. Again, too late though. He's already dead. So if he did kill him, he's too late. There's no chance to kind of book him for that. So what's the deal, right? Is this Marty guy the one who killed them? Is Bo in on it? His military friend that was in town? Potentially. Another thing is, like, why did cops fumble this case so bad? And the sketches, the letter, the phone call, all of it just misfiled. It seems like the sheriff's office is covering something up. And then also, that's it. Like, that's the case. That's literally, those are the updates that we have. That's everything.
What are the theories, though?
It would later be revealed that Marty and Bo, once they left, never, ever returned to the town, ever. Not even to visit his wife.
Or his son.
He never came back. And then Bo, his buddy that was also in town, he, again, wouldn't return, but he died in Chicago years later because he got caught scamming some cops.
That's how he died?
He died somewhere. I don't know if it was of natural causes. I don't know if he got in like a shootout or if he took his own life. Unsure. It just says he died after scamming some cops in Chicago years later. So, yeah. So theory number one, all of these stem from, like, this case has kind of been blowing up recently online. So we have like Reddit and stuff like that, but a lot of people online think it was personal. Like, maybe Susan rejected Marty. Some sort of beef went down between both of them somehow, maybe all four of them. Maybe Marty passed the polygraph, cops let him go, and then whenever it turns out that they found the letter, the cops decided to cover their own ass because they let their prime suspect just leave town and did nothing, even though that was probably who did it. Or maybe since Marty was in the military, he had a good relationship with the cops and they covered for him by botching the case so bad.
Or maybe it was someone else entirely that they covered for.
Right. So that's theory number one, is that the cops covered it up for the murders and they think it was personal. Somehow there was some unknown beef between Susan and the neighbors, and therefore the neighbors did it, and maybe they were nice to him, or maybe the law enforcement was just covering their own ass. Theory number two is something that's blowing up online right now, is that this was a drug deal gone wrong. Because apparently in the 80s, they say that was about the time that the drug scene was creeping into Northern California.
Well, sure.
And Johnny and Dana were teens. Maybe a lot of people are speculating that they got mixed up with dealers. Maybe they owed money. Maybe they crossed the wrong people. Because the murders were brutal, right? Hammers, knives, strangling, cords, tape, all of the above. Like someone was trying to send a message. Tina's abduction.
And it also, multiple weapons as well. Multiple knives, multiple hammers implies at least more than one suspect.
Right. And the kid's abduction, trying to send a message. Maybe she saw it happen. They tried to shut her up. Maybe something darker. Web forums have pointed out that the boys being spared suggests that the killers had specific targets. Johnny and Dana, the mother being there, maybe she tried to step in to protect her son and her son's friend from getting murdered, and she was just guilty by association. But they think, a lot of people are speculating, the town of Keddie had a hidden drug underbelly that was creeping in, and Johnny and Dana, maybe they got mixed in with it. And the mother's death and Tina's abduction was just guilty by association.
Sure.
Theory number 3, what if there was a serial killer in the area? So people on Twitter have been speculating, people on X have been speculating that there was a predator that had seen all the kids playing around in cabin number 28.
Sure.
And they decided that was their victims for the night.
Well, I mean, the 80s not necessarily, but serial killers were really big in California in the 70s, you know? I mean, there was like a dozen of them working at the same time, so that's not entirely off the wall.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. Ted Bundy, I mean, not the same area, but in the 70s.
That's what I mean is like, at least in the 70s, serial killers were very popular in California specifically, but I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if there was others, especially going into like the early 80s, you know.
Right. Another speculation is on this thing, like, why spare the boys, right? If it's a serial killer, why spare the boys? If they were really knocked out that much, maybe he just didn't know they were in there, right? Because the only other kid in the house, Tina, she walked out, allegedly. And then that's when they drug her out of the house. According to the one kid's
statement, yeah.
Right. Now, that's another thing that doesn't add up to me is they said that there was a trail of blood leading to Tina's room and blood all over the bed.
Which implies that the person had been into the room looking for her specifically.
Right.
Yeah.
What a sad time. That's crazy. Theory number 4, Plumas County Sheriff's Office, again, messed up this case, ignored evidence, let Marty go after the polygraph. The letter was never used. Something doesn't make sense. So a lot of forums suggest that a local bigwig, maybe even someone tied to the sheriff's office, was involved and protected the killers. Maybe there's a political gain. Maybe it was something like that. Cabin 28 was the sheriff's home at one point, after all.
Or is it possible that person was looking for the sheriff and their family?
Right. That's what they're stating here. Like, maybe some people came in looking for the sheriff. He thought that was the sheriff's wife and kids, killed them to send a message, and then the town was in on it. So that's why they botched the case so bad.
That's weird.
The vibe is small town politics and corruption. Just let the truth slip through the fingers.
Yeah, a little bit.
Theory number 5. Justin, the 12-year-old neighbor kid. He was at the cabin. He claimed he slept through the murders. Also claimed that he had a dream about the 2 men that killed Susan, Johnny, Dana, and then drugged Tina out. He even helped sketch the suspects, but the artist was, again, not a pro, just some sheriff's friend that was subbed at art sometimes. Online people on X specifically was like, was it a dream or did he actually see something? More X posts go darker, wondering if Justin was involved somehow. Maybe not the killing, but maybe if it was his dad, knowing more. After all, he probably would have known his dad if he saw his dad's figure, heard his dad's voice. Traumatized kid, didn't want his dad to get in trouble. Maybe his dad was abusive and threatened him. Maybe he was scared. Maybe he told the kids, stay in here. Because at the end of the day, 3 kids sleeping through screams that woke neighbors up doesn't add up. Kids are generally light sleepers anyway. Doesn't add up to me.
It doesn't add up at all. I mean, between the 3 of them, there's no way, I would imagine, if neighbors heard screams. And I mean, 2 teenagers and a grown woman being murdered is not going to be silent.
Right.
So,
right.
And then a young girl being kidnapped, also likely not silent, unless she was like completely asleep when they took her.
Right. Questions that the internet has about this specific case is, why cabin 28? Again, sheriff's old cabin, just happens to be a murder. Now this case is unsolved. Why? Another question the internet has is, who in the French toast was the anonymous caller? Was it Marty? Was it some guy? Was it the person who murdered them? Why was it not filed correctly? Justin, he knew more than he was letting on. We can just about guarantee that. And why were the younger boys spared? Those are the biggest questions on the internet. And then, yeah, what's the deal with Martin's letter? 4 lives he talked about in that note. Could it have been the 4 lives that essentially were allegedly taken that night?
Well, I mean, and is that letter even real?
Right.
Or did someone forge it, or did a sheriff, forge it in order to like cover their butts because people were asking questions again? What about that? They didn't even file it correctly. They didn't investigate anything correctly. Right. It sounds like.
I agree. I think it doesn't add up. And unfortunately, we'll likely never know what happened to the cabin that night ever. And that sucks. That's a gut punch to the family. to Susan. Nobody deserves that. Even if they were involved in drugs or whatever the case is, nobody deserves a brutal murder like that. So yeah, that's my case. Cold case, still unsolved. Nobody. That's as far as we've got.
What a bummer.
I know. What a time to be alive in 1981.
Sometimes I feel like with the advancements that people have made in technology, just not even from TVs and phones and cell phones and stuff, but like, how did people survive? Not necessarily in the 80s either, but like just even back in the day. It's like, it seems like back in the day, you remember I don't know if we ever posted it, but we did that, like that challenge of like things that would put a Victorian kid into a coma.
Yeah.
I think that also applies to like past generations of like things that nowadays, like, I mean, even in the 80s, it's like forensic psychology or forensics, in itself would put people into a coma, like detectives into a coma, because there's no way that they would even be able to fathom the amount of advancements that have been made in order to identify DNA and strands of fabric and all sorts of things that they can use these days. And it's just such a bummer that there's so many cases, especially the older you get, like the older cases that will never have answers. Right. Or likely will never have answers because we just didn't have the technology to either know to preserve evidence and or to even be able to preserve the evidence.
Right. Discovering who killed somebody from dandruff.
Yeah.
Another theory that I have personally that is not on any online forums from what I could find. I'm sure there probably are online forums on it, but the husband, Susan's ex-husband.
Oh, her ex-husband, yeah.
Who was said to be very abusive. Could it be that he found out where she lived, showed up one night, and the rest is history?
Yeah, but then that still doesn't explain why he would kill some of his children and not the others.
One of his kids.
Two, if you count Tina.
Maybe.
We don't know where she is.
You could make the argument that Justin tried to fight back. Dana and Justin tried to protect the mom, so the dad had to do what he had to do. Tina saw it. It was the dad. Maybe Tina went with him. Maybe she wasn't killed. Maybe she wasn't drug out of the house. Maybe she went with him because it was her dad and she recognized him. And then maybe she was going to tell. Well, maybe he had to cover himself.
The younger boy's bedroom door was locked whenever the neighbors came in after the older sister found everything.
They had to drive him out the window.
So it's possible. I mean, maybe the older boys were hanging out in the kitchen. It was late, and hanging out in the kitchen, and they were just having their snack before they were going to go to bed. They can stay up later than the younger kids. Mom was just getting ready to go to bed herself, and this, whoever it was, whether it was the ex-husband or not, came in and, did what they did, and then either went specifically to Tina because they heard her up and moving around, or that's when she came home.
Right.
But the timing of when she came home versus when the neighbors heard the scream doesn't add up either.
Right. 1:30 and 10 p.m. Tina came home at 10. The neighbors heard the scream at 1:30. Right.
So. Which
it is interesting to me because going back to the theory on Marty and Bo, if they're out partying, 1:30 is a good time to come home. And he confessed to it. I think what happened is Marty killed him. Marty and Bo killed him. They left town. Now they're dead and nobody can catch them for it. Which, karmic, sure. But I don't know.
Just sucks for the family that's left because they don't get that closure.
Maybe. And that's the thing is, like, this letter, I paid the price for your love. 4 lives. Man, how toxic is she? How is she involved?
Most girls just want flowers.
Yeah. And then nobody questioned her about it. How does this letter get found and nobody questions her about it, knowing that it's from her husband? And they're not going to question her. They're just going to file it away in a box. Something isn't right here, and I'm over it.
Yep, that's not good.
Anyway.
That is a creepy one.
Yeah.
Cold cases are the worst.
They are. They're becoming one of my favorite things to talk about.
Yeah, but they're depressing.
Wow. So is the Chiefs lost to the Eagles, and I had to sit here for that.
That's true.
Man, Megan, dang. What the French toast. Guys, speaking of What the French Toast, we have a website now. Well, we've always had a website, but it looks better. WTFTpodcast.com. Go check out the website. We had a very, very intelligent web designer named my co-host, Megan. She made the website better than I could have done it. So go check it out. Leave a comment and tell Megan how good of a job she did. And while you're leaving a comment, just click the next page over and buy some merch. We got some cool merch dropping on a daily, kind of. Not really, but we could, man. If you guys want to see a shirt about a case, drop it in the comments. We can make a shirt about a case. We got Arrows End shirts coming out. We got new logo shirts coming out. We got new hats coming out. We got new merch dropping, guys. I ordered some. I don't know if Megan ordered some or not, but when mine comes in, I'm gonna be repping it on the pod. I'm excited about it. This is my favorite merch that we've ever had. I've got some of the OG stuff, but
the code SUMMER25, so SUMMER25, to get 25% off of your merch until we decide to cancel that or turn that off. So
all right now.
I'll have a more definite date at some point, but probably at least until August.
I'll tell you what, it's crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. So WTFTpodcast.com/shop. Get your merch. Megan, anything else to add?
No.
All right, guys. Don't be dumb. And I'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.